Hey guys, got some books right here I want to talk to you guys about. I've been reading a couple books here lately that have really sparked my interest. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. See right there, Robert Kiyosaki. And also a book called The Guide to Investing in Gold and Silver by Michael Maloney. And I'll tell you why these books stood out and why they're relevant to me anyway. The way the whole financial crisis is going right now in the United States with the whole debt ceiling and the bank bailouts and foreclosures and businesses closing and unemployment and just the whole disaster that we have right now. It's basically a depression. Anyone who says it's not a depression is lying to you. It's a depression, and unemployment is sky high, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that we're in a bad situation right now. And also the world economy. You know, everybody's connected to the United States. You know, look at the drama we have in Greece, where they're going bankrupt and they can't afford to pay their national debt, so they had to get bailed out by Germany and France, and you know, Portugal, Spain, Ireland. They're all right behind them. They're all in trouble too. And even China. China is connected to all this. So everybody's connected to this whole financial meltdown. And so it would definitely help to educate yourself on finances. And this is basically just a self-help book on finances, but it's not your ordinary self-help book. This one's unique because the author, Robert Kiyosaki, has some things to say that you know, some people may not agree with. You know, in the old days they used to say your house is an asset. Well, guess what? That's not an asset today. You know, if you bought a house a couple years ago, your house is worth less than what you paid for it. So your house is actually a liability today because you can't take equity out on it to invest in anything. It's not worth as much as it was before for most people. And so there goes that one. Your house isn't an asset, which is crazy that he says that because it's kind of true. Your investments aren't worth what they used to be. He personally says he would never invest in mutual funds and other things like that, like 401ks and whatnot, stocks and bonds, because look at the last few years. You know, 2007 to today, the stock market took a huge hit. You know, and crashed basically, and people lost thousands upon thousands, if not millions of dollars in their 401ks, in their mutual funds, and their stocks and bonds and all that good stuff. And he talks about that in his book, and it's true. You know, I'm like, wow, you know, don't invest in mutual funds and 401ks. Are you serious? You know, he says things like 401ks are probably the worst thing you can really invest in if you're planning on that to retire on, which is crazy because you don't want to hear that. You know, you want to have a 401k and Social Security, but sadly, those things may not be there for me when I retire. Like, he says things like savers are losers. People who save their money in banks basically are losers, and at the end of their life, what are they going to have in there? He also has a degree too. He went to college, but he's also a Vietnam veteran. He was in the United States Marine Corps. He was a combat helicopter pilot in Vietnam. He is also the son of a PhD educator in the state of Hawaii. His father was going to run for lieutenant governor, and he grew up in a very educated family. His father had a PhD, his mother was a nurse. All, you know, aunties and uncles all had you know, high education, and he wasn't that great in school, and but he did go to college, and he thought it was ironic that his best friend when he was growing up in Hawaii, his best friend's dad never went to college. Not a day in college. He just took a lot of classes on how to be an entrepreneur, and that's why this book's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You know, his rich dad was basically his mentor, who was the guy who didn't go to college but was a multi-millionaire and retired young and all that good stuff, while his poor dad had a PhD and was basically a hard worker, but basically worked himself to death and didn't have a whole lot to show for it at the end of his life. And he learned from both of them and wrote a book about it. And it's very, very interesting, the things he has to say about what the rich teach their kids about money that the poor and the middle class do not. And basically what he says is, you know, you got to educate yourself and read books and educate yourself on how the tips and tricks of the game work when it comes to money. You know, he talks about taxes and why the rich pay less in taxes and the blue-collar working guy, it pays the highest taxes, and all kinds of stuff like that. So if you're interested in some of those things I just said, check out this book. You can get it at Borders right now at 20% off, and probably 30 and 40% off if you get down there before September when they finally shut down, because they're going out of business, ironically. Check it out, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And when you read his book, you can't help but pick up on some of the things that he says, you know, about your money not being worth what it is. You know, it's just a piece of paper with ink on it. You know, $100 bills not worth anything really. It used to be backed by gold. You know, back in the old days before 1971, President Nixon took the U.S. dollar off the gold standard and basically devalued the U.S. dollar, and it's just been backed by credit, not gold, you know, ever since then. And it's been inflating ever since, because that gave the Fed the right to go ahead and just print money. You know, in 2010 they were printing $1 billion a day. You know, $1 billion a day in 2010 is a lot of money, and I guarantee you the Fed wasn't stacking $1 billion a day of gold in Fort Knox. So anyway, like I said, you start picking up on the little things, you know, how to just get your foot in the door of investing, and you can't help but hear him talk about gold and silver, because he says the easiest way to hedge your money from losing its value is by buying gold and silver, and that's what I did. Let's see, as you can see here, I went out and bought me some silver. And let me talk about silver. Well, let me back up here. So when you read this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, you'll obviously be gravitating towards how to buy gold and silver. This is called The Guide to Investing in Gold and Silver by Michael Maloney, who, by the way, Robert Kiyosaki is in the foreword. So these books are actually related. And basically what he says about silver is if you want to hedge your money from devaluing because of inflation and you know, the Fed printing billions of dollars, if you put your money in the bank, it's only going to grow by what, 1 or 2% annually, which is not very much. And then if the inflation rate is growing at more than 1 or 2%, which it does, your money's not making any money for you. It's just sitting there, and the bank is making money off your money. So the best thing to do would be to take that money out of the bank and change it over to silver or gold. If you look at the stats and look at the history and the performance of precious metals in the past 10 years alone, they've gone up. They've done very well. They've performed very well. The return on investment has been very good. So back in 2001, Robert Kiyosaki said that he was buying silver by the thousands because it was only $4.80 in 2001. 5 years later, 2006, it was already $10 an ounce. $10 for one of these. God, I wish it was that much now. Fast forward another 5 years, and silver per ounce today, you know, in the summer of 2011, is around $39 to $40 an ounce. That's triple its value. So if you just double the value in 5 years, you're going to do well. This would be $80 an ounce. And if it triples or even quadruples, you're going to do really well, and your money's going to grow for you, and it won't lose its value like paper does. Another thing he says too is that silver is now a commodity that's used and consumed in the information age, whereas back 100 years ago, you know, the last 100 years was the industrial age, where silver didn't have much of importance in society and in the world, but now it is, because it's used in cell phones and computers and other technology in the information age. Whereas gold, you know, it's hoarded, and it's not even really used as a commodity, not like silver. So those are some of the things you'll learn after reading these books. And the reason why I chose the silver part is because, yeah, you know, gold is worth $1,600 an ounce for 1 ounce of gold. That's incredible. That's a good thing. But blue collar guys like me can't really afford to drop $1,600 on one little tiny ounce of gold. That's just not something I can afford or want to do right now, just in case I need to take that money and cash it out, you know, to pay bills or for an emergency or whatever. But blue collar guys like me can afford $40 a paycheck or even $80 a paycheck to go buy a couple coins of silver. And on the flip side, if I needed to cash these out for an emergency, I've got 30 coins here. I'm sure I can find 30 people with $40 each, or even $50 each, or whatever the value this is going to be in the future. Even if it was $100 each, I'm sure I can find 30 people with $100 each, or whatever the value is. Versus walking around with a bar of, you know, gold and saying, "Hey, anybody got $1,600 for this piece of gold?" It would be a little harder. I'm sure I can still do it, but like I said, this is a little easier to manage. Another thing too, these are all silver rounds, they call them, and rounds are just silver coins that are stamped into a pretty little, you know, design. They have no government face value. They're not minted by any kind of government. They're just a design made by a company. It's just silver, 999 pure fine silver, so it's worth its weight in the silver. That's it. And these will cost you a little less, probably $1 or so less than something that's more collectible, like this. It's printed by the United States government, and it's called the American Silver Eagle, or ASE as they call it. And the reason why this one's worth a couple dollars more than these is because it is printed by the U.S. Mint. It is actual U.S. currency. It's worth $1. I could take this to 7-Eleven and buy a Slurpee with it, but that'd be really stupid because I'm basically paying with a coin that's worth $40. You wouldn't want to do that. But if you buy a bunch of these, it probably would be a little bit easier to get a couple dollars more for your silver, just because it is printed by the United States Mint. And there's other ones too. Canada makes one called the Maple Leaf, and New Zealand makes one called the Kookaburra, I think it's called. And there's all kinds of different ones. But my thinking is you know, if shit hits the fan and we have a serious economic disaster, and you go to the bank and they're closed, and you know you don't have any money, all you have is your precious metals. It's not going to matter if I have a solid silver coin like this that's not made by the United States, or this solid silver coin. When shit hits the fan, it's just going to matter that I have silver in general. And I know what some people are probably thinking, oh, you know, how can you guarantee that silver and gold is going to be worth anything if shit hits the fan? You know what, you're absolutely right. There is risk involved, exactly. Silver and gold and precious metals in general don't really lose their value. They have intrinsic value. For some reason, for thousands of years, we've always seen value in silver and gold. It's been used 4,000 years ago, during the time of the Egyptians. And it's been used 2,000 years ago when Jesus was walking the earth. So I'm just going by history. I'm pretty sure that even in the future, when if the economy collapses and there's a whole new world order and whoever's in charge of the world, it's not going to matter. Silver and gold is still going to have its intrinsic value itself. So that's just my 2 cents on the whole silver and gold thing. I'm buying the silver to hedge my money from losing its value over the next few years and down in the future. I'm not really buying it to buy it and flip it for a profit in just a short time. I want to keep its value from depreciating like paper does. And that's basically it. Alright guys, so that's my 2 cents on investing in silver, hedging your money. And the book was called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. That's how you spell it right there, Kiyosaki. Read that book, really good book. And the other book was called The Guide to Investing in Gold and Silver by Michael Maloney. Alright, check out these books if you can. And this guy here actually, he has a bunch of other books too that are really good. And I'd check all of his books out if I were you. I like him as an author. He's down to earth, and it seems really genuine in trying to educate people on basically understanding how money works in the modern world. Alright guys, and also check him out on YouTube. He's got some really good videos on YouTube where you can actually see him being interviewed on CNN and Fox and there's some other news shows that use him as an expert on finances and money and stuff like that, investing. So watch his videos on YouTube. Alright guys, stay safe out there.